Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. Back again for another podcast. Today we are joined by my good friend Sam Heaton. Sam is a musician. He plays in a band called Eyre Llew, and then also works within music promotion. How's it going, Sam? How are you doing?
Yeah, great.
Good.
Doing good.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, so I guess rather than me explain to people what you do, if you want to just tell us kind of what you do both as a musician within Eyre Llew and then outside about the work you do, just a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess, well, I'll start with the band, I suppose. I'm in a band called Eyre Llew, like you say, and we play kind of ambient. We're influenced by like ambient and neoclassical bands and stuff, anything from A Winged Victory for the Sullen and Bon Iver, Sigur Rós, and a load of post-rock kind of stuff. And we kind of perform our own kind of version, hybrid of ambient rock, I suppose. So I've been touring with those guys. We started in 2014, August time. We've done like 25 countries around the world now. And you've been sound engineering with us for a good chunk of 2019 and stuff, where we've gone to Glastonbury and played the John Peel there and done stuff in Europe and Asia. Yeah, it's been great. And then when I'm at home, over the last 5 years or so, I've been working professionally as a music promoter, where I've been booking bands and co-booking festivals and doing artist liaison and working as part of a team in a venue. And I've just landed a new job working for Rough Trade as a bar and events manager in Nottingham. So I'm booking events and stuff and part of festivals and stuff in there, along with just being one of the core staff of running the venue. So yeah, life's pretty interesting and fun at the moment, which is a step up from the lockdown situation. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. And yeah, congrats on the new job.
Thank you.
I think one of the main things for me with these podcast episodes is I'm very interested in talking to people who are quite sort of multifaceted, I guess, in what they do, and quite self-sufficient and driven. And I think, both in terms of Eyre Llew and everything behind the band, and then the work you do, within music promotion, I think that's always been one of the quite inspiring things for me, kind of seeing what you do within the music industry, because I think you are very driven, and I think the fact that outside of Eyre Llew you stepped into the line of work within music promotion, all the jobs that you've done, I feel like that's kind of come very organically from being a musician and kind of what you've had to do with Eyre Llew, because you are a DIY band. You spent many years kind of promoting and pushing yourselves and like organizing your own tours, and even though I know you've got management now and stuff, but over the years you've had to be very like self-sufficient as
Definitely.
a band. Yeah.
I think a lot of that was just the drive of us. I think in previous bands, just kind of relying on people to do things for you. And as is, I imagine, with a lot of industries, the music industry is terrible for it, where people will say, oh yeah, man, let's do that. We should do this, we should do that. And then does it ever materialize? And 9 times out of 10, you can usually say no. People always have the good intentions, but it takes that like one person just to get on with it and do something. And I think when I started Eyre Llew, it was very much like a cluster of all of those kind of frustrations, but also just the good ideas that I had and we had as a collective to put into that. So from the get-go, we just said, right, we're just going to do this. This is what we want to do. And we came up with a branding package is kind of the wrong way of putting it, but it's interesting that we had this kind of agreed collective imagination of where we wanted to go and where we wanted to head, both creatively and professionally. And having that communication before we even got in a room as a band was kind of, I look back on it now and I think it's what's driven so much of our success, because we knew from the beginning what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And it does seem kind of forced, but at the same time, so many, is that classic thing where people say no band fails, they just give up. And I think we had that mentality as well from the beginning, that throughout whatever, so long as we just get on with each other and we have that perseverance, it'll be fine. And a case in point is that we all got on with each other, and that's why we decided to start a band with each other, because we all had the same similar interests and we all wanted to do the same thing. And Jack Clark, our drummer and piano player, he didn't know how to play piano. He played drums in the previous band, so he learned a new instrument to be in Eyre Llew. Jack Bennett, he wasn't a guitar player, didn't know how to play guitar. He was a drummer. He was a session drummer in London for like 7 years, never played guitar. He picked up and learned guitar to be in Eyre Llew, which is kind of mental when you think about it.
Yeah.
And we started writing and recording songs together. The first time we got in a band room, it was one of those really organic moments where we just ended up writing a song. Within a month of that, we did the thing where we make a Facebook page and it feels official. Within a month of that, we had wrote and recorded that first song and shot a music video for it and released it. And that was just kind of our entrance into the world, I suppose. And we thought, oh, that went great. We got really good reception. Let's just do that again. And we just kind of repeated that process where we concentrated on one song, recorded it to the best of our ability at the time, shot a music video DIY and collaborated with other creatives, and whether they were dancers or, graphic designers or animators. And we just carried on that process for 9 months, where we wrote, recorded and shot a music video for every single single for 9 months. And what we saw was we built up this traction. Kind of, in hindsight, it was one of the best things we've ever done. And so much so that now on our second album, planning our second album, we're just going to go back to singles and just doing things creatively rather than anything more thought out than that. But we were a band for about 9, 10, 11 months or something before we even played our first show. But we'd released so much content where our first show sold out in like 2 days. So it was like the demand was there, unthought out. We didn't plan for that. It was just, we'd released so much stuff and people wanted to see it live, and that just happened. So one thing led to another. We did that show, then played a few supports, and everyone, what we was seeing was just people were just like coming into these rooms and it was packed out. It was under our control, but it was out of our control as well. And because of just this naivety really of just writing and recording, and the reason we did that in the beginning was just to try and play together and learn the instruments together and work out what kind of band we wanted to be. Fast forward 2 years on from that, we played our first ever headline show, and by that point we had recorded another 10, 11 songs to put on an album, and we sold out 700 tickets for a local venue. And from that we're able to book a European tour, and then got asked to go out and play festivals in Asia, and it just kind of snowballed really. But it was all from playing less, like more in different scenarios and different situations, but playing less in the same places very often. So yeah, interesting. We were lucky in our band because Jack Bennett, he was more studio orientated, as was Jack Clark, so they kind of took a hold on the production, the mixing and stuff at the time. I was much more into the kind of the booking of live events and festivals and tours, and my process of that started way before Eyre Llew, to be honest. And, again, it was one of those situations where I wanted to go on tour, and I was in a band with Jack Clark at the time, and I wanted to go on tour, and I said, wouldn't it be great to go on tour like all these other big bands like Alexis on Fire and, Fightstar and whoever else that we were idolizing at the time were doing. And we were like, yeah, let's do that. How do they do that? And I was like, I don't know. And I remember there was this book called The Unsigned Guide, and you used to pay like 45 quid for this book, which is mad now. You wouldn't ever do that. And I think they do, it's just online membership only, but that was my resource at the time, and I started with that. And I went to like a local library and just picked out a book like How to Book a Music Tour, started skim reading it and just thought, this is just so frustrating, why can't you just do it? And in the end I just like flipped to a thing, and any old venue, call them and say, I'm booking a tour, can I book into this venue? And the promoter on the other end was, I don't think it was even a promoter, it was just like a bar manager. In hindsight, now I look back and I think this is just so naive, but it's what led to like the success I had 10 years on, because I ended up speaking to someone in my bar manager and you probably have to Julie, let me write her number down for you, mate, blah, blah, blah. And gave me a personal contact, which now is probably crossing the line of the GDPR kind of regulations and stuff or whatever. But ended up calling them. They booked me in for a show. I thought that was well easy. I just got a gig in like Wales. Just all it took was a couple of phone calls. Called the next venue and just went through a list. Just thought, where should we go? And I was so naive. This is when I was like 17, 18. Didn't care about the tour route planning of like what was economical or or good with the earth in terms of like fuel, consumption and stuff. I just booked this tour together, and before I knew it, I had 17 dates within 1 month, pretty much in a row with the odd day off. Bearing in mind as well, I was like 17, 18, and I thought, okay, how are we going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. We need to hire a van. Called up every single van hire place I could locally, and none of them were accepting under 25 people to drive their vans. So I was like, we can't get a van. How are we going to get our amps to everywhere? And that was a concern. And so I had a car, I had a Citroen Berlingo at the time. I was fortunate to have like somewhat of a big kind of car for that age. And I detested that car before I had it because it didn't have any kind of cool factor until I went on tour. And then I thought, all right, if I could get a trailer, then I can just drive myself and my friends. And worked out like a tow bar was 180 quid. And thought, okay, I could try and find a trailer. And trailers are so expensive, by the way, if you've ever tried to find one. So we ended up sourcing marketplaces and Gumtree and eBay and stuff like that. Found this chassis for a trailer in the middle of nowhere in Lincolnshire. Bought it, this rust heap. It was terrible for like 50 quid. Fitted that £180 tow bar. Borrowed some money off one of the other band members. Fitted that. We picked up this £50 rusty chassis, drove it back, and thought, right, now we need the wood. Went to B&Q, and it was like well expensive for the wood. As you know, developing a studio, wood isn't cheap.
No, it really isn't. Like you underestimate like how much you can spend just on wood. It's crazy. Yeah.
So my dad was like, oh, why don't you ask the local pallet yard just for some cheap wood if you just need to build the box of it? And I was like, oh, great idea. So called the pallet yard, and they sold us loads of like pallet panels for like 10p a pence, 10p a block or whatever.
Right.
So we bought like 15 quid's worth of wood, built this box, lined it with some leftover carpet that was in my dad's shed, just going mouldy or whatever. And it wasn't the prettiest trailer. I painted the whole thing this nasty ass blue with hammerite paint, and put some of that, that waterproof gravel sheet that you get on top of sheds.
Yeah.
Just put that on the top, just try and insulate a bit. And it was one of the ugliest things you've probably ever seen. And I towed that around for a month and a half on tour. But that's what got us from, everywhere between middle of Scotland right down to Brighton on that tour. I learned a lot because just going out there and doing it is one of the best things we could have done, because you'd come face to face with other promoters. And if they're not at the venue, the bar staff and the bar managers are, who will rebook you again. So booking the tours after that first tour just became easier because you get to know people, and like with the Eyre Llew story, it just snowballed in terms of the booking things. It just becomes easier, and you get to know people, and then you meet people at shows and say, oh, next time you should do your show through me and we'll get you on this, and you build up little pockets of communities in each city. It was just so organic. It wasn't like planned. It was just, we wanted to do that, and I was the person that was going to make it happen, I suppose, in that scenario. So I just tried, and it happened, and it was so much fun, and it's those kind of like, there's so many cliches, isn't there, where people say, oh, you'll look back on that and it's the best times of your life and all that sort of stuff. And, the times I've been touring with Eyre Llew and, all these other guys and stuff, it's just so fun.
Yeah.
So sometimes doing those DIY tours, you might not play to many people in some of the shows. Some of the shows are a huge success, but some of those shows are like a chance, but they're still such a great time that I'd implore anybody to go out and try and do it. So yeah, no, absolutely. And I love hearing stuff like this, just the ingenuity of it, and just like you say, kind of having that mentality where you're like, I want to do this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'll figure it out, whereas most people, they either don't even get started because they're kind of too overwhelmed of like, well, I don't like,
I'm not a booker, I'm not a promoter, so I can't do those things. But everybody who does do those things had to start somewhere, and they had to learn. And the only way, I think, particularly in this industry, you learn with those kind of jobs is by actually getting out there and doing it. And, you know, and I think, I love hearing, you know, just, with the trailer and everything and, you know, booking loads of shows and not really thinking about the route, you know, in terms of your tour, like where you're going. But
you learn that after you've spent thousands of pounds on diesel. Like, man, we need to make that cheaper next time because that Citroen Berlingo put some miles on the clock, you know. So yeah, I've definitely obviously learned that kind of bit after the first time. But yeah, it's just a learning curve, and with every tour and every show, you know, if you think people are always, well, not always, but a lot of people have said to me over this, like, how would you even go about booking a tour? You know, it's mad that you've played tours in, you know, Europe and tours in Asia and stuff. It's just like, well, how do you book a gig? You know, and people are like, oh, well, you know, just ring up, okay, do that, and then do that in Leeds, and then do that in London, and then do that in Glasgow, and do that in Edinburgh, and then book some in between just to make it more cost effective in the route. You've got a tour, you know. And they say, yeah, but how do you do that with Europe? And it's like, well, Google a bunch of venues. And I've said the same thing to a bunch of friends in different bands, and they've been a bit skeptical. But at the end of the day, I've not helped them book their tours, but I've said, this is how I've done it, and this is how you should do it. And it's just a simple case of Googling loads of venues. And if you want it bad enough, you will be there for hours just emailing thousands of venues. And it's just that, you know, Murphy's Law, like by chance, people will give you a chance as well. And it works, you know. And you do that first tour, and it might not be a huge success with numbers and stuff like that come to your thing. But I guarantee you, by you going out there and doing it, you will have learnt things and experienced things and stuff, and it has done for me. So I've had friends that have done that in tours in America, and they've done it with tours in Japan and Korea, and we've done it all over the place. And you know, I've got a booking agent now for Eyre Llew based in Seoul, Patrick. He's wicked, and he helped us book our second tour out there. But you know, when it comes to filling in dates, the same process goes. You know, you obviously use whatever contacts you can, but most, you know, how do you make a contact without messaging someone first? You know, so it's something, it's either you do it or they do it, and 9 times out of 10 they're never going to do it. So you've got to do it. So it's just a case of like, if you just get up and just do something for the day, you become a little bit closer to your goal. And as soon as you get that first booking, that eggs you on to get the second one. As soon as you get your second one, it gets your third one. And very early on, in my like first or second bands, with booking that first tour, I just aimed high with the bigger venues first. So like at the time, it was like the O2 Academy, like 2 and 3s. Those kind of level of venues were like they held some sort of the quality. You know, the independents were cool and stuff, but the O2 Academies at the time were like, you know, just if you can get these, people would take you seriously.
Yeah.
So I just got like an O2 Academy 2 show, or 3, whatever, in Islington, London.
Right.
Got that. Got a local Knots show, which was easy to get in a decent venue. And then I think I got a show in like Edinburgh, a decent venue there at the time. And then I got another decent venue in Glasgow. I think it was a venue called Pivo, which is now closed down. And when people see that you've got some decent, you know, reasonably sized venues, they start to believe that you're a certain level kind of a band. And from there, it goes on to that fake it till you make it kind of vibe. The same sense goes when you book in abroad, you get that first festival. And for us, we just target festivals. And if we can get a festival to help us pay to go and get there, then we try and book in as many like tour dates around that festival to make it worthwhile going, cost effective going, and 3, just more of a fun time while we're there. If we can increase our kind of traction and presence within a territory, and that could be a territory of countries collectively, like the Baltic states, or just a continent in general, or just like a bunch of cities within, you know, a small area, then we do that. But we do it for the love of it. You know, you've come out and tour with us, you know, we're not like getting crazy fees and stuff, but it's definitely like a lovely way to explore the world and just see some new places and stuff. And
absolutely. You know, I think it's such a fun part about touring, you know, that it's definitely, you know, it's not a holiday, but you do, you know, you get to just, I think for anyone, you know, if you enjoy traveling and just exploring and seeing different places, like, yeah, sure, you know, you will spend like 80% of your time inside a music, you know, some dark music venue, but yeah,
see
it's
a lot
still
of motorways and stuff.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun, and you know, you meet all sorts of different people, and especially if you're going abroad, you got different cultures. Yeah, it's just such an experience. And one key thing you said was, you know, the whole fake it till you make it kind of thing, and especially when you were talking about when you were getting started, booking shows and just being like, right, you know, I'm just going to bring up a bunch of music venues. And I think that's, you do have to be a bit ballsy and a bit cheeky about these things, and just, you know, just not be afraid to, because I think just the fact that, you know, if you go out and contact, especially if you you know, try and call people and make that a bit more of a personal connection with somebody, you make the effort to do that. A lot of the time, people are more likely to take you seriously because they're like, you know, oh, well, okay. And you might blag it a bit, big yourself up a bit, you know, if you say you're booking a tour.
Yeah.
It's, you know, makes you seem a little bit more, you know, like you're somebody who should be taken seriously. And it is the same. I've experienced it, you know, as a sound engineer, and I always say this to other people who want to get into my line of work, like you, especially, I mean, both in terms of, you know, recording studio work, but particularly live sound, like there's no real prep for, you know, when you go and do like that bigger venue at that site, you know, whatever cap it is that you've not done before, or, you know, a bigger artist, or going out and tour with somebody, and there's always that first time in doing something. The same thing with me and Max setting up this recording studio.
Yeah,
you have the thing of
as well.
Yeah, well, you have the thing of getting your first clients in, and obviously it's easier when you've got that client history there. And of course, both me and Max, you know, have the work that we've done prior to this studio, so we already have an established reputation there. But you still have that thing of like, you've got.
But everyone started somewhere, didn't they? Yeah. Everyone had that first experience of something. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
You know, the first, in fact, like when you were talking about that the first time, I was just today having a conversation with some of the other people at Rough Trade, and we were talking about how Europe pays higher fees and stuff, and Asia pays higher fees than what the UK do for like bands, touring bands and stuff, and entertainment. A lot of it is down to like government funding venues and stuff like that. But I think, in my experience, the first time we went out to play in Europe with Eyre Llew, we realised, Jesus, we're getting this kind of fee. No one here has heard of us. Maybe like, you know, you can see the Facebook insights and all that kind of stuff, and you think, okay, so 15 people from Poland know of Eyre Llew, but we got booked for this festival, and that's cool because the booker loves what we do, and they're going to pay this handsome fee, which allows us to drive from Nottingham across the ferry, drive. It was like 1,000 miles or something mental to Gdansk, and we played in this town called Sopot. Played a festival there, and it was beautiful. Had a time on the beach, got paid €700, put up in a hotel, got treated like rock stars for the weekend. Felt the absolute bollocks for a moment. Drove back home, thought, Jesus, like if it can be that good, why would we play one of these? You know, pardon my French, but like the duck and arseholes in middle of nowhere, these like pubs and stuff in the back room that hopefully you'll get some free drinks.
Yeah.
Ludicrous. Like, why just play less, play for better quality things, shoot high, and if we get that, and what we saw was, we went out and did that European thing, no one knows how the gig went. And I could tell you now that there wasn't more people there than what would have been at a local show. But the difference is, we went out there, did that, came back, had a great time. People saw the photos. They start believing in you. And it's that fake it till you make it, yes, but you have to do it as well.
Yeah.
So it's not totally faking it, but it's just making it, just doing something for it. And when people see that you've, you know, gone over the hump, so to speak, you'll just start flying with it. And as soon as we did that, people then started like taking it seriously and started offering us higher fees because they assume you're a higher level, which it probably isn't actually wrong, to be honest. You've reached a thing where people are taking you legit. But until then, I think, and I'm not saying that everyone has to go and do a European show to get over that. There's different ways, you could just sell out a venue not outside your hometown, or it's just how you market yourself, I suppose. But
yeah,
do that once in Europe, and we ended up booking actually our second international show. We ended up playing in a city called Busan in Korea, which is mental. Because again, it wasn't the case of us doing amazing at what we were doing. It was just we just did enough of it and kept trying. And where we played a festival in Wrexham, played in this bar, and I think it was one of those ones where you play to about 10 people, and that was the band waiting to go on, the sound engineer, the 2 bar staff, the promoter, and then the guy that came with you as a support idol who brought along 2 industry people to come and see you. Not many people there at all. One of those people was a booker for Canada, and one of those people was another booker for a festival in Seoul, Korea. Both of them offered us to come out to their festivals that year, and we had to make that decision where we go with the Canada offer or the Korea offer, because they were both clashing in the same month.
Right.
And we were like, this is just such a mental scenario. Again, going back to that, a lot of people say things and they don't follow up on it. Us Eyre Llew boys we'll get offered something, a cool email will come in saying, you've got this opportunity, do you want to do it? Or, hi, I'm from blah, 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 and I'm interested in doing this as you. We don't get excited about it. We're just completely neutral and flat-minded, and close ones of I know my partner and stuff was a bit weird. We got offered a show in Macedonia a few months ago, and she was like, that Macedonia, that's mental that you got offered that. How exciting is that? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it'll be cool if it goes ahead.
Yeah.
Because I know that anyone could offer you stuff like that all the time, but until it actually happens, it's not happening. So we were the same with this career offer. We were like, oh, yeah, it's cool, how would we go about it? And the festival was like, oh, we can only give you this much support towards it. So you'd need to apply for additional funding or, pay for the flights yourself. But we could pay you this when you get there and blah, blah, blah. And if you want, I could help try and get you, secure your extra shows on the ground around the festival. And I was like, okay, applied for PRS funding, I think it was. And we got it. And then we were like, oh my God. So we got offered the festival end of May. Played that gig, off the festival in May, went home, was talking to the promoter for about 2 weeks just over email. They suggested we apply for funding. We applied. A month and a half later, we got the funding, which meant we had to buy the flights. Within 2 days of getting that funding, we had bought the flights and we're flying out to Korea, within a month and a half. What we found was we went out there, had this festival slot, and played a show around the festival, and it was down on the south coast. So we had the festival in Seoul, and down on the south coast of Korea is a city called Busan, which is the second largest city there. Seaside resort, palm trees, sandy beach and stuff like that. It's beautiful. Played this place, played in the venue. They were like, that was amazing. When's your next show? We said, oh, it's in Seoul. They were like, when? And we were like, oh, next week. They said, what are you doing till next week? I'm like, nothing. We're like, well, do you want to come play my mate's bar tomorrow? And we were like, yeah, I mean, sure, why not? We could spend an extra day here, got nothing on. He said, yeah, you can sleep in the venue, mate. Just yeah, please play. And I was like, yeah, sure. Next night, woke up in our accommodation that night, went to the venue, played that gig. Did a gig. It was absolutely rams, because everyone who was going to come to that night anyway, which promoted last minute, but the promoter really liked what he saw, got all his mates down, and then some local university people, and the previous people from the previous night came. So it was just absolutely packed, and one of those real hot, sweaty gigs and stuff. Same thing happened again. The promoter saw this British band, so that was amazing. Come and play my venue. So we went and played this extra venue. So this is now the third gig in the same city, and that happened 6 times in a row. Pockets, where we just on tour, someone would see us go, that was amazing. Come play my place. And that happened 6 times in a row until we had to eventually decline someone and say, sorry, we've got to go up to this festival tomorrow. And it was just so organic and wasn't planned at all.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting thing to me, seeing how ever since I started working with you guys, doing live sound for you, I think there are some bands who come together where things do kind of happen quite organically in terms of how the dynamic in a band works. And this is where, for a lot of bands, I think, where, they might all be great musicians, and they might make great music together, and they might all work really well together in that respect. But, maybe none of them don't have any business sense, or they're like personality clashes or whatever. Whereas I think all, you guys are all very level-headed and very much, on the same page in terms of what you want to achieve. And none of you, at its core as well, and I think this is a really important thing, just believing in what you're doing and doing it because you love it primarily. Not, I think when anyone goes out to do something just because they want to be, rich and famous or whatever,
the next Liam Gallagher.
Yeah, it's like, it's not in the pub. Yeah, it's not, it might, it's not that it doesn't happen for some people that way, but I think the biggest thing is when you have somebody going out there and doing something, particularly with music or any of the arts, that is kind of real and true and honest and just something people can connect with because it is authentic, because the motivation behind it is creating good art. So I think the fact that you guys have that, and then the fact that within the band, like you say, like, you're very good at the kind of promotion and business side of things. The two Jacks have got that engineering background, so you kind of all have your little roles
nice
within
pockets cross.
I know what
you mean.
Absolutely. Even just stuff, having people when you're going on tour, somebody who's willing to like drive for hours on end, stuff like that. It's exactly. It's, you guys aren't afraid to kind of put the hard work in, and understand that it's not going to happen overnight, and that not, kind of every opportunity that comes up is, not that there's anything wrong with getting excited about things, because it's great as you start to do better and achieve more, and obviously you should, it's fun when you're doing these things, and so it should be exciting in that respect, but also at the same time not setting your expectations too high and expecting that because you've got booked for that one big show that it's like, oh, now we've made it. It's all
stay
happening.
Humble, man. So many people do that wrong, and I see that from a booker's point of view as well. I think a lot of me applying to these gigs and stuff from the early days up until the Eyre Llew days has definitely been a good kind of it's been a really good lesson for myself to know what's the best way to approach bookers and stuff like that. Just simple things of what to and not to include in emails, or how to present an EPK, and it goes differently, like how to present an EPK to a booker and how to present an EPK to press. Two different things, different ball games. Press might not want to listen to something on SoundCloud. They might hate SoundCloud links. They might be like a vinyl junkie that I know a friend is, and if you gave him your record on a vinyl, it might cost you the price of a vinyl and maybe the loss of the markup you'd make on the vinyl. But if that person was a targeted person, there's going to like their music, and is going to give you a review, and that their community around them has a following of that person because of what they listen to and what they recommend, then that's so much more weight than the price of a vinyl. And I think a lot of people forget stuff like that. To me, what I've had at Rough Trade in my short time there, and what I've had in my last 5 years while working for a different national promoter, people send Spotify links. Now, I think this is me independently. I don't have Spotify, and I don't like Spotify.
It's funny you say this. I am literally exactly the same, and I get people sending me Spotify links.
And how frustrating, because you click on the link, you can't play the song, or it plays a different one that you had wanted to listen to. So a lot of people don't know this as well, but when you sign up to these distribution agents like DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, whatever it is you're using, they will automatically upload your stuff to YouTube. And some people know that, some people don't. So I'll just click on it and say, what have they sent? And then I'll have to make the manual effort of then going on my YouTube tab, typing in the thing. And it's got to the point now where in my saved bookmarks on my work laptop, I've got a YouTube tab in the saved bookmarks, because I know that, you know, probably 6, 7 out of 10 of the bands that send me links, it's going to be a YouTube link in there. And I know they want to get that Spotify play so that they can get more likely in a playlist, and they want to get some royalties to their music. But if you're caring about the royalties, do it on Amazon Music. They pay 14p a play or whatever it is. Not Spotify is 0.0035 to someone like me who doesn't have a Spotify account, you know. Yeah. So it's just daft, you know. I think if you just want to get booked, make it as easy as possible for the booker.
Exactly.
And the same goes with any industry. You know, a booker and from a festival and a PR who's writing reviews for bands and stuff will always favor the band that makes it as easy as possible for them. Not for them to try and be lazy, but if you're working with a good band musically and professionally, how easy is that collaboration? You know, and if they say, oh, here you go, mate, thought you might need this, and if not, if you want this, then you can have it, and here's the link, you know. Or at least say, if here's the link, but if you prefer, we'd love to send you a physical copy or whatever it is, whatever that preferred thing. But just don't leave out the options. Don't assume that people want what you're giving them, you know. And the same goes from any format, whether it's, like you say, like applying to press, or whether it's applying for festivals to say, you know, we'd love to perform at this festival, but if we're not ready and you don't think we're right for that festival, then we'd love to explore options of performing in your region or your area or your country, whoever it is you're doing. And I've got gigs through applying for festivals, but also on the side of the festival, punching for the festival. But if you don't get the jaw, then at least you might get the jugular, and they'll say, oh, well, maybe we'll offer you some shows in, you know, in some of the smaller venues around here. Think, okay, cool. Well, we've got this festival here and we've got that thing that's paying us to get there. And they've just given us a tour route. Job done. And I didn't get what I wanted, but I got something that's just as good at, if not second best. Yeah. Which then makes you look more legit to then go on to the next promoter, and then they'll offer you something extra. And it's just a knock-on effect. You know, it's about using not the defeats or looking at it as defeats, but looking at it as, or how can I swing this as a positive? Like, I didn't get the festival I wanted, but we got a gig in Riga, and that's great, because now we can apply for this festival, and it will look like we're legit about coming to the Baltic states again and again and again, and it looks like you're serious about committing to that region. A lot of people just don't want people that just can turn up to your venue and never come back again. Everyone wants that repeated business from a venue standpoint and a band standpoint, surely. Surely you'd want to go back to the same venue and build up a community of fans. So, yeah, it all plays in each other, man. And I think making it as easy as possible is just the best way for all parties.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it did make me laugh that you mentioned the whole Spotify thing, because you know, I'm not even somebody I'm not a promoter or a booker or anything, and yet, you know, occasionally I will. Like just recently, I had, especially with having the studio now, you'll get the odd band that will send you a link because, you know, they're interested in whether it's a client making a booking, they just want to give you some music as a reference, or a band, you know, just interested in, maybe because we've been doing some promotional things and stuff like that. And you know, you get sent a Spotify link, and it's like, well, and I do exactly the same thing, the YouTube thing, but it's just, it takes out a little bit of my extra time, and you know, in those cases for me, like, I'm willing to do that. And I think, you know, maybe if you're a booker or a promoter, you it's not that you're not going to be willing to do that, especially if you have to. But it is just, you know, if you can not create that extra work for the people who you're trying to get on board with, you know, it absolutely makes sense. And I think just being open, like you say, as well, to all the opportunities that you can, and being willing to adapt any kind of situation, and not, because again, a big thing that I think a lot of people have, I know when I started out in the music industry, I very much had a set idea of, like, you know, this is where I want to be in like 5-10 years time or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to be a successful, recording artist or touring musician or whatever. Not taking into account that anyway is, when you're young and you get older and your priorities change and things change, what you want out of life changes. And I realized
financial pressures kick in.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I realized, I was like, actually, this isn't what I want to do at all. And over the course of all that time, I was slowly becoming more and more interested in sound engineering and all of that stuff. So it was an organic thing in that sense. But, I had such a set idea of what I was going to do with my life that for a period of time, I just wasn't open to anything else. Whereas these days, I'm very much, yes, I'm a sound engineer, so that is the line of work I'm in, and there's limits within that, and it can be difficult, especially before coming into the studio. I within the company I was working for, within live sound, I was made redundant, and when you're faced with a situation like that, and you're kind of like, well, potentially I'm going to have to go into another field of work, and this is what I've been doing for my entire working life. Yeah, it's like it's all I know. So, that can be very difficult, but I think because I've always been willing to adapt within this industry, and I'm, even within operating a recording studio, me and Max, we're not naive. We didn't just set up a recording studio thinking like, oh, we're going to get in like loads of cool bands and record them and, be successful that way. It's like, no, actually you have to do a lot of different jobs and diversify. And it's not just recording music, it's recording all sorts of stuff. Recently we did something for a radio play, like Foley stuff. Like there's so many things you can do to diversify. And I think as a musician, just kind of having the end goal of like, I'm going to be this like big successful touring musician, which I think is the mindset that a lot of people
I've been guilty of that, for sure. Yeah. Even in Eyre Llew, like one of the ways we started it, Jack Bennett ran a music recording studio, and me and the other Jack decided to quit our jobs and just focus on music and try and become musicians. And I think we lasted about 7 months, without any income coming in. And I'll say this, we met up every single day and we didn't waste that time at all. Like we met up minimum 5 days a week, like spent 12 hours at the studio, just writing, recording and learning stuff, applying for things, working on branding and everything. It's such a valuable time and I wouldn't take it back, but didn't make it, still haven't made it. But I think it's just about the outlook you have, really, isn't it? You just, again, it's about spinning things into the positive. And if you just make sure that you're aware of the skills you're learning and how to replicate them in a professional sense, then, like I have done with all those years of like booking tours, DIY, again, getting a job with a national promoter, booking events and stuff into a venue, and that led on to another job where I'm now one of the events managers at Rough Trade. And I will still continue to be in a band, but you're right in the sense that your priorities change and your kind of outlook and stuff, your perspective changes. Even lockdown has changed how me and Eyre Llew are looking at recording and working on our band in the future, where we're taking a step back professionally, and I think we've all had that Gordon Ramsay kind of like outlook where we need to delegate that jobs and not be so controlling over our thing. And yes, having that perseverance and drive to do things yourself as what kickstarted it. But once people start coming in and being interested, allow them to be, because they're going to be like passionate about it. And we're starting to do that now, and allowing not just our managers to take more things, but open up the idea of not producing things ourselves and working with a producer and doing things and paying for recording rather than doing it ourselves on a budget. And we're going to scrap our van and then potentially get a driver in and do different stuff and just build a team. Like we've been trying to bring you on as many international and big touring, like we did John Peel at Glastonbury with you and stuff like that. And among many other things like Belgium or whatever. But it's just, I think when you build that team and community around you, the things we've experienced was just that everything just becomes so much more relaxed, and when you start delegating that work, it kind of runs itself. You know, you don't have to like stress. And I'm so guilty of being that person where I was stressed and all the time, and just probably being a bad character to be around at times, just because I was like so worried and anxious about different things. And as soon as you get people in and you give them some trust, enough for them to prove themselves, you don't have to worry about it again. And it's such a lovely thing. And we're now doing that onwards, where now we've got the perspective of, let's just write and record the best album we possibly can, and then we'll allow other people to come in and see what they can do with it. And whether that's a producer and recording it in the Isle of Harris studio there that we're talking about, and or working with a label to take it on and not worry about how much percentages that's all going to kick off into. And of course there's horror stories, but at the end of the day, if you're proud of a product and you want to be a musician, then try and be that. Don't like do everything else. But in terms of you saying about people doing different jobs, that's true at any level. You know, just because you're not earning a huge living off music and in a musician sense doesn't mean that you've not made it, because there's still like, you know, Michael Jordan like is one of the best like basketball players ever lived, right? Crazy ludicrous fee he's probably getting from Chicago Bulls and stuff like that, but I guarantee you it didn't stop him doing all those endorsement deals and side hustles on the side and little films, Space Jam and all this kind of stuff that we've seen in the documentary and things. Just because you're at a certain level doesn't mean you've made it and you're going to solely be that person. You still have side hustle. Everybody does in all different types of things, and those things are actually the things that broaden your CV and broaden your skill set and broaden your experiences to bring into the next project and your current projects. You know, I've been doing like guest lecturing for a local college, and I've been driving 6-figure cost cars for Mercedes around doing artist liaison in the back of festivals, where I've picked up Stormzy from his private jet in Birmingham and drove him to V-Fest and, you know, various other like things for a Mercedes VIP just in the background, just as, you know, I know what it's like at festivals and I know what it's like for artist liaison. I can drive. So just doing that as a side hustle between tours whilst I'm, you know, waiting for more promotion work to come in. And it's just those little bits of work you find are just often the things that just make your CV or whatever it is sparkle, if that's what you're trying to do and trying to land a job professionally. I don't know. And if not, it's just a fun, cool thing to say you've done, and you might make a contact out of it or have a story to tell while you're talking to the producer or while your guitarist is recording a lead line for the next album or something. Do you know what I mean? So everything ties in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, you know, I really used to see myself as, well, I had, when I was younger, so, you know, I'm talking like late teens, like early 20s, I had this very set idea, but like, you know, if you didn't make it as a musician or whatever, whatever career path you're going down, then
it's failure.
If you were somebody who had to get the day job kind of thing, it's like, I've failed. Yeah. And actually, you know, what you come to realize as you get older, is that it's not a failure at all. It's actually like, you know, for you, taking the skills that you learned, you know, being in bands like Eyre Llew and the bands you were in before that, in terms of, you know, booking and organising shows and stuff, and building another career off that, like, that's such a huge success. It's like so far from the opposite of a failure. Yeah. And so it just makes me laugh when I think back to my younger self, thinking that, because like all of the kind of best successes that I've had in my working life have all been because I've done those kind of side hustles or you know, just diversified in what I was doing, just opened myself up to the idea of doing different things, and a lot of the time it ends up linking back into the main thing you do. It does, you know, because especially, you know, it is, especially in the music industry, I think it is a small world, and so anything you do kind of like side hustle wise, even so in me and Max opening this studio, and you know, we had to apply for business loans and stuff, and the guy who approved my business loan, you know, when he rang me up, because they had, you know, a few final things to discuss and stuff, but then, you know, he was just asking me more about my business plan because he wanted to go through everything with me. But yeah, it turned out he was just this like big music nerd basically, and a musician himself.
Yeah.
So
what mics are you using, mate? Oh, it's a nice preamp. How much did you pay for that? eBay, was it?
Yeah. And he's emailed me and rang me a couple of times since because
to check in and stuff.
Yeah, and also because he's a few other people who he's, through his work in approving business loans or whatever, a few other clients that he's had have been musicians. So he's been like, oh, I know a guy, who has a recording studio, like, yeah, if you need recording or whatever.
Quality.
So yeah, it all, if you open yourself up to not just work-wise, but just generally, with things, just being open to whether it's the things you're afraid of or the things, you think you might not like, or it's not like you have to go out and, be like Jim Carrey, yes man.
No.
But,
and it's also, you don't have to like knock on every door in the street and try and hustle necessarily every day. I think it's important to have that personal time to reflect and to re-energize, and sleep is the best friend. I've been that guy where I was working like a full-time job and I've been touring, or playing shows at night and just getting really run down, and then you end up with a cold or the flu or something like that. You're thinking, why am I ill again? Why am I ill again? It's because you're run down, mate. It's because you're knackered. And at the end of the day, sleep's your best friend, and you just got to like get over it. But I think you're right. Just stepping back and just kind of allowing things to happen, and those people you come in who and just kind of it all ties in, doesn't it? It really. I think going back to that delegating job thing is just so important. It's funny everything we're talking about, because I was that person where I'm just going to be a full-time musician and stuff, and I'm really skilled at putting on tours and shows, and I can book artists, and I know what it's like because I am an artist, but I've also been doing it for so long as, for third parties and stuff, and I'll just do that while I do this, to make some money. And it started off like that, but I ended up actually really enjoying it, and it's something that I would love to carry on doing for a very, very long time. And the Eyre Llew then becomes just more of a pleasurable thing to do. And it's then just enjoyable when you take the pressure of the business and making it and stuff. And what we've found over lockdown is we've had limited time to meet up. We've only met up like 3 or 4 times since June of 2020. And it's what is it now? June. So a year on, 2021.
Yeah.
We've only met up like 3 or 4 times, but every time we meet up, we've recorded loads of demos. It's been super productive. It's been a super enjoyable time because you make the most of it. And we're going to continue to do more often rehearsals and writing sessions and stuff like that. But having that time off to re-energize and reflect, I think we were calling for that subconsciously for a long time before it really happened, because when you're going out playing 100 shows a year whilst trying to keep down full-time work and relationship and personal life and stuff, it was just so ambitious, and I think you just kind of got to evaluate and step back. It's that think smarter, not harder kind of vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I think probably a lot of people can relate to that, given the last year, because I think it's made so many people, I know we were talking about this earlier on, it's made a lot of people reassess and reflect and just appreciate more the downtime, because most people, like modern living, it's so busy and it's not until you really stop, fully stop, that as much as I did start, especially as somebody who lives alone, being home alone a lot and stuff, over the course of the lockdowns, and I definitely did start, I was itching to do stuff again, but at the same time, just having the downtime, the time for personal reflection, and just appreciating more, realizing that it's great to be busy, but also being busy all the time. I mean, we see it in other countries who are introducing shorter working weeks and stuff with your 9 to 5 jobs, where
smart
people,
working and stuff like
yeah,
that.
people, and it's so far, most of the studies show that it's well proven that people are a lot more productive and get more done when they work less. Because like with anything, when if you're just at something all the time, you are going to burn out and not be as productive. So yeah, I absolutely like.
There's so many characters that I can think of that you and I have worked together, who have been suffering from burnout, and I'm probably one of them. And I know I can just think of so many off the top of my head that the lockdown was a good thing for that. It destroyed the industry and it destroyed so many people's careers in the short term. Again, that was the same for me with just redundancies and stuff. But yeah, it's just really important as well just to kind of step out of things for a minute. And yeah, it all ties in.
I mean, you were talking about with Eyre Llew, how it's been kind of over the course of the last year for you guys. And actually, interestingly, when you mentioned the studio that Jack used to run, which essentially was this place. Same building, same space. Again, links back into
this
that
is a
small
hybrid,
world
more
thing.
Developed version. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's another kind of interesting point for me, for you guys as a band, the fact that you started as this kind of studio band, and like you were saying earlier, that you all sort of came from different musical backgrounds, but took an approach to to kind of take on something new. There's different approaches, the studio approach, and then like being a band making a racket in a rehearsal room, or kind of finding your feet more, like playing gigs. There's something to be gained from all of those things collectively. But yeah, I think, are you guys finding now kind of having, I know you've had limited time to meet up, but it sounds like to me with the new music you're working on, you're kind of going back, or at least kind of exploring the idea of being more open to, I mean, I think you've always kind of written that way, haven't you? Like with demoing songs and
sort of. I mean, our first album was, actually it's interesting because our very, very early singles, it was very much, we just get us as a band in a live room, jam out a very like early idea, and then take that into a studio and just record the layers and just add layers on that, and then that was the single. And then our second album was, right, we need to actually be able to play these songs as a band, because the early singles weren't so much like that, because we had so many layers. We had like 4 or 5 guitar tracks each, and then multiple different lines sometimes, and then pianos, and then big drums and orchestral notes and stuff like that. And it was just, we're in the mindset of writing music how we wanted it to be, not the limitations of the band. And that was amazing. If only everything could be like that. But then we found that when we were asked to play shows, we were playing versions of our songs, and they would just sounded different to what he could replicate in the studio to live. So the first album, and that second phase of the band, was trying to write songs that we could play live and sounded massive. And then we had this goal of how big can we make these songs sound with just 3 of us. And that included using loads of reverb pedals, 2 delay pedals, an octave pedal and a distortion pedal. And, once you've stacked all these things on top, each of your tones is just this monstrous wall of noise. And that was cool, and that was its own development of the band in itself. It's trying to, how can we make us sound like there's a 8-piece band on stage playing to an arena. That's what we want. Like, we envisioned, like, we just want to play these huge amazing shows like the National would do, or Bon Iver would do, or whatever else. So yeah, the process we're doing on our like latest record, which we're kind of demoing at the minute and talking to producers and stuff, is just writing music with the idea that we can get in guest musicians and stuff to come on tour with us, or even potentially play to minimal backing tracks and stuff, and working with in-ears and clicks and stuff like that, which is a whole different realm we've never done before. We've very much been just a live rock, post-rock kind of band, really, with a monitor in front of you and really big 4x12 amps with a Vox AC30 head on it, or just you sound engineer for us, so we're a big wall of noise at the end of the day. But now we're just kind of stepping back a little bit and just thinking, well, what's the best sound we could create on stage that would help Mark as an engineer, but also just help us creatively, and once you take those limitations of trying to be a live band or trying to be, the type of band, whatever, you just write songs to try and make them good songs. And it's just so much more interesting now for me anyway. I think our process has changed where we're demoing everything and listening to it back and going, oh, well, if it changed this section, changed to that section, then maybe we could do this. And then we take it back to the live room and reinvent new ideas. And songs have these kind of, instead of just being a core idea with layers on top, it's now just a core idea that's kind of morphed and changed into this whatever version we've got in the end. And it ends up being multiple versions, different things, and which I suppose, as I think about it now, we could release as well later on down the line so people could see the creative process or hear it. And I love that from bands. Like going back to the National again, they have a song, Terrible Love, one of the best songs of theirs in my opinion, on their High Violet album. They've also got a Terrible Love alt version. I always imagine, was that a different studio version that they recorded and then they ended up going with another one for when they're working with an actual producer or something? I don't know, but it's so awesome because I love that song so much, where there's two versions of it and I get to listen to it twice without it getting repetitive. That's cool. So I suppose we could do that, and might do that. I don't know. We'll see. But our record is a lot more kind of interesting with the different layers that it's incorporated as well, where I'm playing acoustic on some tracks and then electric guitar and stuff as I would on other tracks, and both, and then I'm also playing an organ on another track and stuff. So it's going to be a lot more interesting live now, mate. I've got to say, I don't know how it's going to change the transportation and stuff, but I'm excited to see how it all pan out. If it was working with backup tracks or not, that's a whole new realm for us to learn. So
absolutely.
We'll need your help.
It sounds exciting, and I think it is just this natural kind of organic progression that the journey that you guys have been going on as a band. And I think it is important for any band to not just kind of repeat themselves and just do the same. You've done that thing of being like, how can we have a sound that we can capture and replicate live and have this kind of big, stadium kind of size sound. You've explored that. You've kind of learned what you needed to from that, and to be able to then take that on to take a different approach with this next album you're doing. And I think it's such an important thing, just being open to different approaches and trying new things, because otherwise I think I just think the more you are open to those kind of things, the more inspiration is likely to strike, because whether that's from sort of imposing limitations on yourselves, like you'd done before, it's like, right, how can we create this sound that we want to create, but like be able to do it live, so not adding in like loads of studio layers, but still kind of creating that big sound. So within that, when you've got limitations, that can be quite sort of inspiring, I think, within the challenges you might find to sort of create a certain sound within whatever limits you set yourself. But then equally, then when you just open yourself up to whatever, so it's just different approaches, isn't it? But it's finding those different approaches to give yourself like that inspiration, I think. And
sometimes things will lead on to each another, I think, but just by us adding different instruments in, it changes the feel of a track. And it's crazy how playing acoustic in a track will change how it would feel if you played electric through a track, or converted. A lot of things we're doing at the minute with this next record is I'll come in with an acoustic idea, play the songs an acoustic idea, and on its own, it would sound like almost like a lot of acoustic songs would. You know, you can imagine it, right? An acoustic is no other sound like it, really. But then you convert those chords onto a piano, and then take it from a piano onto a keyboard with a MIDI, and he plugs into his Zoya pedal. Same chords, just different kind of effects and stuff. Sing the same vocal melody. It's now an Eyre Llew song, you know. And that was the same for us, you know, where I just laid up my guitar, you know, add 2 delays and a reverb and make swells for ambient swells and stuff for those chords. It then makes it Eyre Llew. You know, doesn't mean that we could be playing, I don't know, American Pie, but just play it in the particular way and it sounds totally different, and change the BPM from 120 to 60 or whatever it is, and it just changes. So we've definitely taken that approach and adapted it to where I'll come in with an acoustic song now, convert it to piano chords, and just add piano layers on top of piano layers. There's one thing we're in love with at the moment is like piano ostinatos. So there will be like a piano thing, and then there will be another one on top and another one on top of that. And once you add all these different layers of piano, it just sounds so beautiful. It's lovely because it converts where you originally would have taken the song, and those extra little lead lines you add on for the fun of it and just for the kind of creative it to layer up these interesting kind of bits of ear candy, then leads on to new sections of the song that you probably wouldn't have created before. And we've been taking that idea and layering it up vocally, where you record a vocal line, duplicate it, of course, add a harmony, but then mute all those things, and then just come up with a whole new vocal line, and then do it again and add another harmony, and then you play those together and then mute them again and come up with a different vocal line. Listen to them back, and you know, by that point you've got like 9 channels and you can just choose 3 of them or whatever. Just work on those, and you've now got like 3 vocal lines running through, and it's just like, wow, what's going on? It just changes the song so much. And we've been doing that with almost every aspect, as I come to think of it now, even with the drums, where we're doing counter rhythms a lot with the drums, and every drum now has like 3 toms and the bass drum with the sticks, and it's quite tribal sounding drums and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'll send you the demo playlist where
I'd love to hear it.
TBC for other people there, I can't say, but we'll see.
No, it sounds exciting, and it's I love how, you know, whether it's changing what instrument you play something on, or just changing, you know, the overall arrangement, whatever it is, changing the tempo, like how much it can change a song. Because I literally just did that recently with John Mayer's latest single. Which
I saw that was great.
Cheers, man. It was actually I heard he put out on his YouTube channel an acoustic version of a song, and I listened to it and I was like, wow, it's like, this is so different. It's like, it's the same song, but it's like a completely different song at the same time. Suddenly like the lyrics just seemed to come across in a different way. Like, it was, you know, a bit more kind of delicate, and just really quite pretty. Whereas the original arrangement on the single, it's like this very kind of 80s sounding thing, and like, I love it, but it's a very different feel. It's like this kind of summery, kind of fun, you know, loose kind of vibe. Whereas the acoustic version is kind of more intimate, more delicate, more kind of, you know, pretty sounding. I heard it and I was like, you know, oh man, like I really want to learn how to play it this way. Yeah, I love that, how you can, you know, just
it's
change.
so inspiring though, isn't it, when you learn a song and you feel like you've made it your own a little bit. Absolutely. We all have like you know, our musical greats and stuff that we aspire to and, you know, cherish and stuff, but they've also usually done things in a different way, and that could just be like an acoustic live lounge kind of cover. But, you know, a lot of the time, you know, like Bon Iver, that Can't Make You Love Me on the piano is just so much different to the original in terms of like how stripped back it is and just lovely. But I don't know, the thing I'm really, really enjoying just coming up with acoustic songs in the flat. And before I would never have wrote a song on my own. In fact, I don't think I've ever done I've never done a solo gig acoustically on my own, and that's a whole hump that I need to get over. But one thing we're excited about, and we have said that we want to do for this current album we're writing and trying to record now, is we want to be able to replicate these songs live acoustically. So in that scenario, people can get the album, and I could play an acoustics version of it because it was originally written on acoustic. And that's also really exciting, because how they'd hear that would be a total different reason for giving someone the opportunity to come. It's a different reason to get someone out to your gig, because they get to experience it in a different way. And that might put someone off, but I'd say if I got to hear some of my musical icons to perform their version of their album track on their own, then that's a cool thing. A lot of people kind of, and again, I was guilty of this. I used to think if we can't replicate that song live how it is on the record, then that's really bad. And we just don't do acoustic gigs, and we haven't done acoustic gigs really for Eyre Llew, because of that reason. And we're just, again, shifting that approach. If people can experience it in a different way, then that's cool.
Yeah.
It's actually really quite pleasant, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I totally agree there. I think, just as part of the fun for me, of live shows, like being able to experience as much as, definitely I go to certain shows kind of, just wanting to hear it as if it were the
way
record
you fell
play.
in love with it,
You don't want to hear, like I don't know, like
3 hours of acid jazz version of,
like
Pink Floyd, you think, oh my god, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely like limits, but hearing, there's some great shows I've been to where, like, whether it's they've decided to kind of play it a slightly different way, or it just sounds different because there aren't certain overdubs or whatever, or I don't know, just like the tones of the guitar are slightly different because they've got a different session player in the band or whatever it is, and it all adds a different flavor, and it's a different experience, which I think is fine as well, because it's a different energy that you get from a live show anyway. So I think the way you listen to music live is different anyway. So absolutely, like and I think this is going to be I think it's going to be an exciting time for you guys. I'm excited about it, but don't give up the day job and just find something you enjoy as well. Make it a passion. I think that's the thing. You just stay true to that, and you'll be fine. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think we'll probably wrap it up there. But thanks so much for coming on and doing this.
My pleasure.
It's been
really
great chatting. Well, I was gonna look towards the camera near me, but it's around out filming time. This is why you make sure your memory cards are clear before you start filming. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this second episode of the podcast. I'm sure we'll be doing plenty more, so stay tuned. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and as always, give the video a like if you enjoyed it. That always helps us out. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
See ya.